Hi, everybody. This is Tracy. I wanted to start by first welcoming you all. We're really happy with the attendance level. Anybody who's a beginner and wants to learn more, this is going to be great. For those who are just learning to dive in a little bit more, I think that you're going to find that you're already doing everything you need to. One of the neat things about WeSuite and using the tools here is that you actually are recording data that you can use to improve your process within sales, to actually set goals and improve those goals, and then also to really help the company that you work with to improve their overall sales performance. So we're going to go through 5 KPIs, and the idea here is that we're going to give you ideas. You may use some of them, you may kind of take them and twist them a little bit differently to your liking. And I'd like to kind of explain to you what I consider a KPI. So a KPI is a key performance indicator. What we really want to look for are leading indicators. We want data that tells us how we're doing before something happens. So we want to be able to take data and use that to make better decisions, more informed decisions. In our cases as salespeople, I'm a salesperson too. I'm also an owner of a company. So I kind of have 2 roles here. One is the sales that I need to achieve every year, and the second is, company success overall for all the people here at WeSuite. I know that on the phone we've got people here who are in different roles, executives, sales leadership, and sales people. And each of you may have a little bit different day-to-day role, but I think overall the goal is to have great success. So when you're thinking about your KPIs, what I'd like you to do is consider your role and then consider the goals. You may have certain goals that are company-wide, and so you'll set certain KPIs to be specific to the company. You may have certain goals that you have personally. And within those, what we want to do is start to kind of get into what are the details, what are the kinds of information that best represent the information you need to achieve those goals. We're going to start with 1, and it's all about goals and activities. I'm in We Opportunity, and the entire idea of goals and activities very often I find is kind of foreign to people. We all kind of say we have those goals and ideas of what we want to achieve, but we don't often make a plan. So the prospecting plan and prospecting activities are one way that you can really look at, for instance, your quota goals. Now, I work with a lot of different companies that tell me many have quotas per salesperson. We often see, though, a lot of companies don't have quotas. So I look at that and I say it's not a bad word, it's actually a good word. Change the word to maybe target. And when you're looking at a target, what is it that you want to achieve in a year? So on the prospecting side of the house, you can actually say, I want to look back at the history of my sales over, say, the last 3 years, and I want to divide the types of sales I've achieved into categories that represent certain dollar amounts or certain recurring revenue amounts. Some of you today are really only interested in recurring revenue. That's fine. No problem. Because what you can do in your prospecting planning is really drive towards those RMR goals. Others are interested in outright sale, and others are interested in both. So what we've done is basically given you a way to first establish categories. You'll see here squirrel, deer, elephant, and T-Rexes. Those are mine. You can call it ABC. You can call it small, medium, and large. You can make up anything you like. But the idea is here to say, what does a squirrel represent? So when I make a squirrel sale, in this case, it's between $0 and just under $25,000 per sale. There's also a squirrel RMR, which is between $1 and $50. And I've also over here indicated to me, as a salesperson, what that means. Again, you can write any description you want that helps you. My deer are $25,000 to just under $100,000 in outright sale, and $50, just over $50 to $125. elephants 100 to just under $500,000, and T-Rexes everything over $500,000. So the idea here is we're categorizing these and setting from 0 to infinity a way to capture this information and report it back to you. And again, I'm just going over concepts, so don't worry about if you need more and we're not explaining everything to you today, don't worry, you can get in touch with us and we'll help you with this. The next thing I did as a salesperson, let's pretend that the number, let's say, on my head as a salesperson annually is about $2.5 million. And I aimed high only because the person we use today in our demo server is Jack Shepard, and he's done a lot of selling over this period of a year. And so we had to increase his sales goals. So it doesn't matter to us if your annual revenue goal is $100,000 and your RMR is $50,000. That's fine, or AR. In this case, we just upped the ante to give you better statistics. So Jack came in and he said, I want to sell $2.5 million in a year. He stretched the goal a bit, which is a good practice, and he basically looked over the history of his selling, say the last 3 years, and he recognized that his sweet spot are deer, these $25,000 to just under $100,000 jobs. And he set a goal of 12 in the course of 2015. He also has a lot of squirrels, a few elephants, and a couple T-Rexes. And the second thing he did was do the same kind of thing for his RMR. So after he saves the quota, the system itself will report back to him a breakout annually, quarterly, monthly, weekly on both outright sale and RAR. This so that any type of sales user, whether you're volume driven or you're more an integrator who's kind of monitoring things month to month, or you might be a very large system sale kind of person, so you're really looking quarter to quarter, this really fits for any user. The second aspect of this is to say, well, how am I doing against those goals? So you can come in and set up reports. I've set up one for monthly, and when I show that report, we're seeing that as of December 15th, and Jack's on the annual calendar year, he's very close to his goal. He's at 99.83% of the goal that he set for his sale, and he's also way over goal on RMR, so he's doing pretty well there. Now, the other thing the system will do is report back to you your wins and your losses. And in a grid like this, you can sort, and I think a lot of you know this, but you can actually sort by, for instance, your percent to goal for outright, your percent to goal for recurring. So you can really set up these reports in the ways that are best for you. Now, my suggestion here is that you look at this organizationally and figure out a couple reports that are good for the entire sales team, and then you as salespeople figure out those reports that are best for you so that you can actually set this up to be worthwhile for your view. Your perspective here is to say, have I set the goals properly within a given period of time for the types of sales I want to make, and ultimately for the kind of money you want to make, right? Because at the end of the day, most salespeople are here with very personal goals, the people who are waiting at home for them. So the next part of goals and activities is going to be, well, how do I get to selling these? And that's going to be comprised of creating a prospecting plan for yourself. Now, the reason I bring up prospecting is because prospecting is a way that we can kind of outline the activities that we do on a regular basis. I want to point out that some of our activities can be very much linked to markets. And the reason I'm mentioning that here is because our next KPI is going to deal with our sales market success. So I'm going to kind of set that stage now. But you can see that I've got several activities that I may perform. I may perform them monthly. I may perform them quarterly. I may perform them weekly. But I've created a list here that when I'm ready, I can create my activity goals per month. One of the KPIs that's very, very important when you're doing goals and activities is to not only set a goal of what I want to do, like how many cold calls I'm going to do in the month of December, but the activity needs a result. So that leading indicator, we've got the behavior And then we've got the result. How many appointments I need to set. So this is very similar to if I'm going to a networking meeting and I'm spending my time, and they usually are before work or after work, I'm going there with a very specific goal. That's the same thing here. So for every activity that you've got on your list, you're also going to set up the number of appointments that you want to achieve. All right? Now here's where you get your results. So as I perform my prospecting activities, I actually will see that I was supposed to do 50 cold calls in December. I've performed 8. I'm supposed to get 30 meetings, and I've gotten 4. Now, sometimes that leaves you with a little bit of a pit in your stomach, but I think the real thing to take away from this is that when I do the behavior, so I did it 8 times, and I got a 4 meeting result. That's a pretty good return on investment. When I look at my strategic alliances, if I do 3 of them and I did the goal, I did do the work, then how many meetings did I want to get? I wanted 8, and I got 2. The point is that I keep doing these activities, and I will get those results that I'm looking for. And these results, these meetings, are what are going to join together to achieve our ability to actually get a lead, complete a quote, and win sales. All right? The final thing I'm going to show you in this first KPI regarding goals and activities is the prospecting activity, proposal activity report. So this report is actually pretty neat. This allows us to see, and I set this up to be monthly, all right? Again, you can set this up weekly, monthly, quarterly, or even in a date range. I'm looking at a grid view versus a chart view, and I'm looking at this year, 2015. I'm also looking at my activities. If I'm somebody who is a sales manager, I can easily look at other people within an office, so you can set that up too. And what I'm getting on the bottom, though, is a report by month that shows me the activities that have led to sales. Now, why is that important to us? When I start to see that LinkedIn, for instance, where I spend a lot of time, or referral requests, or cold calls, or strategic alliances are actually achieving the goals of actually bringing me sales, the next time I come in to do a list of prospecting activities and set up my user activity goals and see my reports, I'm really honing in on those things that are most valuable to me. What's reporting back to me? What's giving me the leads and activities I need to achieve sales? If I find certain things are not working, I then can really examine, is it that it's not a good place for me to spend time? Or is it a place that I need to do something differently? So maybe you need to do more of it, maybe you need to do it better, or maybe you have to do it differently. Now, these are things that you can easily find just because of these reports. The other thing is that you can export a report like this to Excel. And that could be valuable to you because then you can start to normalize data and kind of play with it the way you'd like to. All right? Also remember that for any of these, you can set up as many different views as you'd like, add those views, update the views, and start to really utilize the information you're getting here. All right, so that's KPI number 1, actually setting goals and tracking activities. Let's move to KPI number 2. KPI number 2 has to do with how we achieve market success, so sales market success. And you might say, well, why did you pick that one? The reason I picked that was that typically when an organization is looking at its sales overall, it really is wondering how it's doing in the markets that it targeted. And those markets, when you really look at sales market success, we can break those down overall by the company. We could break those down by an individual. So you may, as a salesperson, say, wow, I really want to focus on schools. I really want to focus on government. I focus on residential. I focus on property management, whatever it is. The idea is that we want to understand how successful we are within each of those markets so that, again, we can understand, should we do better prospecting activities So that's your first place to look at how to achieve market success. Set up prospecting activities that are targeted for the markets that you're trying to sell into. Why do we do it? Because when I look at, say, for instance, the URG within WeOp, I may start to look at my leads by market. So I've set up several different reports here, and the first one we'll look at is a leads by market. Now, it could be a leads by market source and origin. I'm going to come to that in just a second. But I've set up two reports. One is leads by market monthly, another one is quarterly. Let's do monthly, and let's go ahead and take a look at that. I'm going to button up this the summary area. So leads by market, I've set this up to look at the market, the owner, and the status. Now, the reason I sorted by owner as well is because I counted myself as a sales manager, and I also have certain people who report to me in specific offices. If you're a salesperson with nobody reporting to you, you don't need this sort. You could just do market and status. The second thing I did was I ordered the columns so that I could really start to understand not just the market. So here's commercial office market. The owner is Jack Shepard. And then we've got the leads that are in each of these statuses. Now this is very important to me because I can start to see what's in progress versus what's a lead. When it's in progress, I know that I'm really actively working on it, whereas something that's in a lead stage may not quite be where I need it to put it into that next stage. The ones that I really pay attention to, though, are the ones that get into the RFQ. RFQ means I'm actually quoting for that lead. And I can also take a look at my pipeline percentage and my pipeline description. Now, one thing that's very important here is that you can start to see if you haven't made a change on a pipeline percentage or a follow-up or description. So this is an area where you want to start to really be sure you're updating your leads. A second thing you'll notice is when you've got an RFQ, one of the fields that you could include on a report like this is actually a job number. So this op ID is coming from WeOpportunity, but if I wanted to add a field such as the job number, I could actually come in here, find job number on the list, and then just check that box. And now that field too will appear on this grid, and I can actually arrange that to be where I'd like it to be. So it's going to come in over here to the right. I can literally move it to where I need it. And you're going to see as I do that some other interesting things here. I've got an estimated budget, an estimated RMR. I've got a last note. Last note is a great field to have on any of these reports. And then I'm going to move my job number way over here because in my little brain, it helps me to see if something's got an op ID and a job number, then obviously I know that this is already in that RFQ status and it's in WeEstimate. Okay, so this report is giving me leads by market on a monthly basis. And again, exporting something like this to Excel, and we'll let that happen. I'm going to open that up for you. This is a user right. So for any of you who need that kind of user right, be sure you talk to your system admin. When I open up that Excel, you've got another way that you can kind of play with the data the way you need to. So here's my ID, my job number, my name, customer name, the job title. Here's the pipeline description, the estimated budget, estimated RMR. So again, remember, in this case, I really ran this on leads. I didn't run this on anything that has been sold. This is really something I'm interested in on the lead side. And I've also got my last note description. The totals will automatically show here as well. All right, and then you've got an average here for the pipeline. Okay, the next aspect that I'd like to show you is same thing on the URG, another report I set up. And again, I'm dealing with market. So I'm really looking at sales market success. So leads by market, source, and origin. Why is this important? So when I think about leads by market, source, and origin, I'm really looking at how did I record information on this lead that tells me, A, market, because that's what we're really interested in, the lead source, this is the marketing effort, and then the origin. The origin is how did it come to me? Was it an incoming or an outgoing effort? So these are very, very key pieces of information, because when we start to understand the markets that we're in, the ways that we're going to market, the way that we're trying to let people know who we are and what we do, and how successful we are, because we understand the lead sources as we get a new lead, and then the origin, an incoming or outgoing effort, we start to understand if our lead source was a marketing effort by our marketing staff, but the lead origin was an outbound, I did something, then really that's because I generated that interest versus something that was a paid advertisement. There may be people that you talk to and they say, oh yeah, I did see you, or I heard you on radio, or I saw your ad in a particular magazine or something like that. But these are key pieces of information so that you can get better statistics on, again, market level, the effort, the marketing effort, and again, your way of inbound or outbound activity. All right. So just keep in mind that you can take any of the data that's here, all right, these columns, and start to create the kinds of activities that you really, or the reporting data that you really want to use to drive towards these KPIs. All right? Let's take now reports. So we're moving from the WeUp URG into some reporting that we give you standard within WeOpportunity. The first thing I want to look at is the leads sold per market, and that's on the sales dashboard. Now this is a report that's just a running total throughout the year. So to me, this is kind of a trending report. And I like this report. I'm going to run this for 2 regions, New York and Northeast. And again, you're going to run it by annual year. The neat thing about this, though, is that once you start using this year after year, you can go backwards too, and you can get information that you can actually print out or export in different ways and then start to compare. The top report is what I wanted to look at. So during the year 2015, I'm actually seeing the leads sold per market. And so I can actually look at the markets here. I can see how many leads and how many jobs were sold. When you see a sold that is outpacing a lead, it's probably because someone actually created this job and we estimate without a lead. Now that's something I wanted to point out here because that's a leading indicator too. That's when you're starting to say, hey, we really want everybody starting a lead and working it all the way through the system so that we really get better information overall. A KPI that you might think of there is how many days does it take on average for me to work a lead into a sale, a won position or a lost position. And I may want to know that per market. So if you're starting in WeUp and working all the way through, you're going to get that kind of data. All right, let's move to the next one. And the next one is leads by detail. So leads by detail is also, I love this one. I think Samantha and I use this very often. This leads by detail is one that says, all right, let's drop this down. And since we're talking about markets, let's sort it by market. And let's just, I'm going to do the whole year. So 1/1/15 straight through 12/15, which is today. And let's run it again on 2 regions, everybody involved, and refresh it. Now, this is kind of interesting. You can see I've got a pretty long list of markets. That might be one thing that you really want to watch. You may say, I have to be in all those markets. You may say that, hey, public use, petrochemical, and architects and engineers and associations, do we really need to be here? After the entire year and whatever marketing information we put out there, we've only got, a few leads in each of these categories. So either rethink your strategy. If you need to be there, figure out how you're going to make better market penetration for leads, or drop it. Get out. There's no point in spending your time there. The other thing you want to do is anything that's undefined. So you see down here I've got this big chunk that's undefined. And the reason is because I didn't make that a required field. So when I look within a lead, I'm going to pop into a lead just real quickly. If I didn't make market a required field, then I'm not going to get that data. And the funny part about that is, look, the market as a required field is easy. It's a simple click, just like lead source. So here's your marketing activity, here's your market, here's your origin. How did it come to me? All right? Once I do that and I save it, there's another piece of data that's going to help you with all of this reporting. All right? Easy. Click, click, click. Everybody has time for that. All right? Okay, great. Now, I'm going to shift gears a little bit because I think you're getting the idea of what we want to achieve in sales market success. I'm going to move into WeEstimate. Now, just want to kind of orient you. When I'm in WeOpportunity, I pretty much look at everything that's kind of my lead to quote, all right? Meaning my lead to the point where I'm actually doing an estimate. And that's very important. I'm looking at pipeline development. I'm looking at how to get the leads that I want in each market. When I move into WeEstimate, I'm really looking at what happened from the point of quoting to a win or to a loss, all right? Or on hold, you can decide. But let's do win to loss. So let's start with the bad news first. So I'm in the Universal Report Grid. I hope all of you are using this. This is such a great grid and easy to get to. Up here on the reporting toolbar, it's the first icon. And for those who are beginners, I cannot stress it enough. Use this grid. Really easy to do. I'm going to open a job and show you a real easy way to get the data you need onto the grid. Basically here, this will open up with just your name. So if you, again, are just working on your own as a salesperson, that's wonderful, and it'll just show your name up here. If you have a sales team that's reporting to you, you can easily click on selection of all. You can select an office. You can select individuals. And so it's an easy way, again, to get specific information as you need it. The other thing I'd like to show you is that if I right-click here, I can also include, for instance, not just my sales and how I'm doing for my sales quota, but my recurring revenue quota and how I'm doing there. So this looks a little confusing. It's a lot of info, but it's actually very, very good info. I'm actually able to see my sales during any quarter, and I'm also able to see, if I move all the way over, my percent to goal and any variances. All right? Now, you may say, what's the difference between final sales and sales? For those of you who use our commission management system, final sales and sales is just a matter of if you had any splits, certain amounts of money may be partially yours and partially someone else's. So your sales and your final sales could match if they were all your own. But if you had any variance where you were splitting a certain percentage of a sale, that could be designated to one of your colleagues. All right? Okay. I then set up reports here. You can see I set up a whole bunch. The way this is done is very simple. You simply can click on adding a view. I named this view Lost Sales by Market, and then I came in and I used my field chooser. So just next to the final, the first column here, you see a little square here. Just click on it, and your field chooser is here. Now, look at all the fields I can choose from. Some of them apply only if you're using certain modules. Like if you're using commissions, there's a lot of commission type fields. If you're not, then no need to even check these. But on this particular report, and let's lost sales by market, I have selected to see the market, of course, the GP percent and the GP in dollars, gross profit percentage and gross profit in dollars, the customer name, the quoted price, the quoted region, because in my case I may be looking at several regions, the quoted recurring monthly revenue, the salesperson's name, the total contract value. I think this is another one. If you are not watching total contract value, I'd say, think about it. Take a good hard look on that. That is the outright sale plus the RAR times the term. So the real value of the total contract. And the other one I added here was the type of sale, because I think it's an important thing to start to look at. Let me just close the field chooser. So I've got my quoted region, my salesperson, my market, and I can see in several cases somebody didn't include the market. Easy to do, double click, open that up, record the market. My customer, my type of sale, easy to do, double click, open it up, record the type of sale, all right? And then I've got my quoted price and the totals, my total contract value, my RMR, and the GP, and this is the average GP. The other thing you'll see is that I actually ran this for 1 year. I know, this guy's like magic. He doesn't lose anything. And then down below, all the way at the bottom, the other thing I can do is I can see that this is including 11 total jobs. And then this gives you kind of your averages. This is your total loss. This is your total average GP, and that's your total recurring monthly revenue. All right? The reason that I like to look at lost sales by market is because I may see a trend that I want to take a look at. I may see that in the corporate market I'm losing, but that's because I do an awful lot of bid work, let's say. Or I do a lot of negotiated work and I don't win every single one because they've got more than one supplier. I may see that certain markets that I thought would be very good for us, I'm losing. I've actually gone to a quoted stage, but I'm losing. And I want to understand when I record that market, I want to open this job up and see the reason I lost it, because I may see a trend there as well. Finally, when I look at this loss by market, and this is from the quoted to a loss, I may go back and compare these results with that market report in leads by detail, because I may start to see, wow, I'm not getting a lot of leads in a particular market anyway, and then when I get the market, when I'm actually quoting it, I'm also finding that we don't sell a whole heck of a lot. So that might be another way to compare the two and decide, should I really be in that market? All right, let's move on. The next one I'm going to look at is markets and negotiation. So markets and negotiation is a way for me to see, and I just pick the report, pick the filter, and now I can see any markets and negotiation. Key thing here, I want to see the next action date, and I want to see how I can start closing. And remember that any of these you can actually set dates on, so you could look at this quarterly, annually, monthly, weekly, whatever you want, all right? Another one here would be the market size and GP. So now I'm just kind of giving you ideas of reports that you can say, I want to see everything I won, but I want to look at it by market size according to the GP. So I can also filter just by clicking this to the real gross profit margin within a particular market. And I can sort a report by market. I can then sort again by GP. And again, I can then right-click and export this. And I can start to really normalize the data and figure out, am I really firing the sales that I want in a particular market? All right, KPI 2 is down. Let's go to KPI 3. KPI 3 is improving your sales success and your process. And what we want to do there is basically say, how do I use prospecting, which we went over briefly, to improve our success, our sales success? The big thing there is to say use prospecting, because you 100% will start to develop a strategy and start to see that you can actually monitor your activities and your behaviors and see that you're doing the right things to get leads and activities across the line. The second one would be pipelines. So I would look at that and start to say, so let's move back over here. I'm just going to open up a lead real quickly. One of the biggest things that you can do to improve your sales process is to establish a template. So it's a very important thing to do. As a sales team, talk about this. What are the ways that you can work together to identify the steps needed to make the sales cycle go faster, all right? So one thing is using questionnaires when leads are created to kind of really identify what a caller or prospect is looking for. Another is to make sure you're using these stages because you want to see where leads are and in what stage. Another is to use the definition of pipeline. Pipeline is something you define, so the percentage and what it means, you define it, so that we're all starting to speak the same sales language. And that way we can start to really hone in on what are the things that we need to do to move this into the next stage. Our pipeline also is very valuable because when I save a certain pipeline, and I do have a budget here, the system itself will return a percentage, 45% of the estimated budget. If you are RMR driven, do this all day long, it'll give you the estimated value based on the RMR as well. The last thing I would tell you here to improve your process is start to really enter tasks into the system. And your tasks, again, really can follow the template that you're trying to hone with your team. Now, my list has a bunch of stuff on it just to get you thinking, but really, in a WeSuite world, we do something that's basically first, we have a sales assessment. And our sales assessment is actually a business form. That's the first thing we do. You need to complete a sales assessment before we speak together. The second thing we do is we actually start working on an ROI. So we identify the things that are difficult for someone and how much time and money those are costing, so that when we work on a budget together, we understand where are the areas that we can improve and what's the value that we're offering. And then we work on budget and decision. You know, is it something that you really are going to move forward with? If, when, who's involved, all kinds of things like that. And finally, if we pass all those things and everybody says, yep, got the money, everybody's on board, now we work on looking at software. So that's the kind of thing that here would make a lot of sense. Really hone in on what your process is and look for ways to improve it. Another key indicator that you can use, I'm going to go back to the URG, is to say, I want to understand how many days my leads are in progress. So Sam and I worked on this, and we said, let's look at lead days in process. So when we created this report, we said, let's filter only on the lead status and the in progress status. And what that gave us, when we looked down at our detailed report, was a way to say, oops, sorry, I just refreshed it, was a way to say, by owner, here's my op ID, how many days has this thing been out there? If I can start to look at that, and then I can start to look, for instance, at the market, I can start to say, wow, typically in a residential market, we need a really fast turnover, right? We need to get the lead, get out there, quote, and close it. In a commercial market, you may have a lot of variances there. So this kind of information, how many days it's in process as a lead, is very critical. The next one you could look at is days to RFQ. So if I go down here and I look at days to RFQ, another report I created, I can easily see how many days it took before I reached the RFQ status. And that's really easy to see. It's a trend. I see the date I created and the date it was changed. When I see quick interchange, I know I'm doing really well. When I see those dates really far apart, that's when I start to look at, well, what's the reason behind it? Okay? Let's move into the URG. And I'm sorry, you can do a couple other things just to mention this to you. You can also use reports here to say, well, let's look at loss reasons and why I lost something in the lead area. So if you look at leads by detail and you look at losses, you want to understand if there's any trends for the reasons you're losing things. Okay? There may or may not be, but if there are, let's find out why. The second thing is you might be looking at the lead source and figuring out if your lead source has any indication of ways that you can get more leads, improve your leads. All right? And then in WeEstimate, the other thing I would do here at this URG is really look at the days to close. So I would set up a report here that is days to close, and you can do it by salesperson. You could do it, you know, pretty much any way you'd like to do it if you're an individual versus somebody that's sales leader, all right? And you can do days to close in a one stage. I would actually do that only in one. You can see the days to close here by salesperson, and again, you can sort that report any way you need to. When you think about that, think about days to close by market, by salesperson, total contract value, RMR. Pick the values that are most important to you. All right, we're going to stay here and WeEstimate just for one more thing, KPI 4, which is forecasting. Forecasting is something that's really, really critical to our organizations, right? Forecasting is what gives us the actual, you know, cash flow kind of KPI. So we're looking for things that tell us in the next 30, 60, or 90 days, what kind of revenue could we expect? And depending, again, on the setup of your system, you may look at that per salesperson, region, or office. But what's really important to understand is that these reports are here. And as long as you're forecasting, which is one click in each job, then you can see, basically, to make my 30-day forecast, I have two criteria. Number one, that I'm in a 90% chance of win or 100% chance of win within the next 30 days. All right, so it's a calendar, next 30, and also my percent to win. The second for 60 days in my system is I've got to be 80% or better and close within the next 60 days, or 90 days is 70% or better in the next 90. Everything else falls outside of that. Now, why is that important? The reason that's important is because when your company is looking to project the resources they need, or to look at their cash flow for hiring or anything like that, making decisions for purchasing and that kind of thing, they really are counting on what kind of sales are we bringing in as salespeople. Within an estimate, the way to forecast is simple. You just hit the forecast tab and you determine your probability of close. I happen to win this job, so that's why it's at 100. I matched the estimate because I was closing it at $24,895. If you're forecasting for someone and you think you're going to negotiate this down, unclick match estimate, put in what you think this final sale will be, final RMR, and then hit save. Okay? Now, in this case, this was already determined. It was already something that we won. Back to the URG. One of the fields that you can have here is whether or not you matched the price when you did the forecast. So forecast matches estimate is a kind of a very telling field. When it's checked, that means that automatically the system is going to match this quoted price. When it's unchecked, you can actually change it. So let's pretend that we thought that this was going to be a $423 sale. I can say, oh, it's actually going to be a $350 sale. I can uncheck this and make that change right here if I needed to. So one of the things I want you to take away is that you can actually have a lot of control on the URG. I'm in one job, so you can do that in negotiation, for the way that you're setting up reporting to your CFO and other people. All right? The other report that I would suggest you take a look at here is one that is a manufacturer's report. I'm going to just look at this for, say, the last quarter. And here, I'm going to look at it for certain stages. I want to see everything in progress, everything in negotiation. Where are you? And let's look at everything won. And what am I doing? I'm actually going to have a call with, or I'm going to a trade show. Let's say that. I'm going to a trade show, and I'm going to see a bunch of manufacturers. And I want to be able to have at my fingertips the amount that I've got in progress, that I'm working on, in negotiation, that I'm going to hopefully close very quickly, and then also that I've won already. When I have that information and I march into a trade show, I have a lot better negotiation power. So these are great KPIs to start to use to negotiate better pricing for purchasing. All right, last one. The last one is all about you as a salesperson. The biggest thing that I think any of us want to know is how are we doing per quarter. You might want to do per week, per month, per quarter, and per year. So we as salespeople are always interested in our results. Our sales leadership is as well, and of course our executive leaders are as well. So using the URGs is one way to do this. You can come in and you can say, I want to look at everything I've won in a particular period of time. Or I want to start to really hear, let's do Q1 sales by salesperson. So I just named the view. I set up my columns that I'd like to see, and I filtered by the one column. And then I can look at Q1. So I could actually go backwards here, 1-1 to, let's look at March. Okay? As soon as I do that, the information here adjusts. So I can see that in the first quarter, we won $6.6 million of sales. I can see the quoted pricing. I can see this by salesperson, by customer. I can see it's a result of 221 sales. I can even see the average GP, all right? The other thing that I might want to say is how do I kick more of this over the line? So that's when I start to say, how do I see what's in negotiation? So you can set up a negotiation view, a markets by negotiation, your own personal, next action. That's another one. Next action tells me, what do I need to get this thing over the line? So I'm filtering on negotiation. Here are my next action dates and my items. So if I start to see things that are falling way behind, I either have to eliminate them and close them out, or I have to take action to get them across the line. All right? Finally, days to close and days to RFQ. So one of the things you can do is actually from here, you can start to look at how long it's taken to close something from the point that it was, let's do on 1, days to close from the time that I started a quote. So this, again, is a very, very important thing. And this is another easy one to filter. You're just selecting this field to show and then ordering everything that you've got here. And I do want to show you that if I did salesperson and days to close, all right, I can export that to Excel, and it exports exactly the way that I sorted it. So I can do a lot more fun things over here.